Welcome back, my friends. Currently, we're on day 259 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine. And this morning, guys, I'm a little tired because I stayed up late last night watching election results here in the United States. These are the American midterm elections. And as of this morning, we don't really know which party will be in control of the Senate and which party will be in control of the House. Because of America's system of federalism, every state votes differently and every state counts votes differently. So some states like Texas and Florida are pretty fast with their election results. And some states like California, Oregon, Nevada, Alaska, they take a bit longer to wait for mail-in ballots to come in before counting certain precincts. So it might be a couple days before we know the official results. But what it looks like is going to happen is that Democrats are going to remain in control of the Senate and Republicans are going to take control of the House by a very small majority, only maybe a couple members. And this is actually good news for Ukraine, as there was lots of Republican challengers, people who wanted to get into Congress that were opposed to additional military support for Ukraine. Universally, across the board, all of these candidates lost. They did not win their House seats. In addition, there are a couple members of the House that have been critical of Ukraine and voted against additional military support. Some of them are losing their House seats. A good example of this is Colorado Republican Congressperson Lauren Boebert. She's been used on Kremlin state TV because she's critical of additional military support to Ukraine. She tweeted out back in August this bogus report from CBS citing that 30% of all American aid to Ukraine was being stolen. This is Russian misinformation. There is zero evidence for this. There is complete accountability from the Pentagon. They're tracking and inventory everything. All military assistance being sent to Ukraine is being used effectively, and we can see those results on the battlefield. But Congressperson Lauren Boebert didn't want to support Ukraine and didn't want to believe that the military assistance is being effective. So currently, with 90% of the votes in, she's 2% down in the results. So it does look like she's going to lose her House seat. This just makes it easier for Speaker McCarthy, if he does become Speaker of the House, to approve additional aid packages to Ukraine until they win this war. And if you are American and watching this video, and maybe you voted for Boebert or you voted Republican, I just want to emphasize that Russia is playing both sides. Russia admits now, openly, they brag about it, that they're interfering in U.S. elections. So Putin-linked businessman admits U.S. election interference in a statement. This is Prigozhin, who is linked to Putin and has been sanctioned by the EU and Washington. This is a quote, "Gentlemen, we interfered. We are interfering and we will interfere." Prigozhin, who has been accused of running a troll factory to influence the outcome of votes in several Western countries. So Russia is interfering with elections in Italy, in France, in Great Britain, in Spain. If they think it's to their advantage, they're going to use the internet and social media to push extremism on both sides of the political spectrum. So here is more evidence for you. This is Russia's top state TV propagandist, Solyov, just jokingly yesterday on his broadcast saying, "Happy interference in U.S. Elections Day."
Доброе утро, дорогие друзья. Поздравляю вас с днем вмешательства в американские выборы. Сегодня же там выборы, мы же все в него должны вмешиваться.
So he's not being very subtle. He says it again on a different broadcast that, yeah, Russia happily interferes in American democracy.
Мы уже, конечно, вмешались, иначе же быть не может, правда? Мы же не можем не вмешаться в американские выборы.
Да, доброе утро.
So whether or not the Republicans take control of the House, I don't think it's going to make a difference officially as far as additional support from the United States to Ukraine. The Kremlin says ties with the United States will remain bad after the midterm elections, regardless of the results. Let's now get to the top story of the day. This is pretty exciting. Russia has officially ordered a retreat from the capital city of the Oblast of Kherson City. This is pretty exciting. Here is the actual video statement from Defense Minister Shoigu. This clip is 30 seconds. Let's watch it together.
Приступайте к отводу войск и примите все меры, чтобы обеспечить безопасную переброску личного состава, вооружения и техники за реку Днепр.
Есть. Маневр войск будет осуществлен в ближайшие сроки. Соединение части займут подготовленные в инженерном отношении оборонительные рубежи и позиции на левом берегу реки Днепр.
So we've known for weeks that Russia was planning this strategic withdrawal. On my channel, I've been calling this an open wound in which Russian forces are disproportionately losing more equipment and material, more forces than the Ukrainians are. So finally, after weeks of hemorrhaging troops, the Russians officially are going to abandon the north bank of the river. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I think the highest quoted number of Russian soldiers on the north bank was up to 30,000. That's going to draw down to 0. And Russia does view this to their advantage. They can pull all of their forces out of the north bank and redeploy them to the Zaporizhia front, or the Donbass front, or the Kharkiv front. But the same is true for the Ukrainians. Once this has been officially reclaimed by Ukrainian forces, they then can redeploy their soldiers to those 3 fronts. So what's going to happen here is the river is going to become a nice natural barrier. The Russians are never going to be able to get back across this river. The Ukrainians also aren't going to be able to cross this river. In order to, for example, liberate this region down here, they're going to have to cross the river at Zaporizhia or Dnipro and then come down along the left bank of the river in order to liberate this territory and ultimately get to Crimea. But it's astonishing how much of a propaganda loss this is, losing the regional capital of the Kherson Oblast. Russia claims that this is Russian territory. They legally annexed this city, and now they're completely going to abandon it. So here is the reaction on state TV of this propaganda queen. As a pundit says, yeah, we're giving up on ever taking any of this territory.
Ну, нужен ли нам контроль над островом Змеиный? Вот вопрос...
Больше нет? Одесса не хотим?
Нет.
Николаев передумали?
Я еще раз подчеркиваю, что нам не нужно сейчас играться в то, что мы уже проиграли. Эта война будет долгой. Мы уже четко знаем, чего в этой войне...
Но играться в то, что уже выиграли, тоже еще большее заблуждение.
Возможно, но я считаю, что грех уныния это вот гораздо хуже, чем то, что когда мы...
It's absolutely incredible how Russian propaganda has changed since the Kharkiv counteroffensive. So of course, Russia desperately wants to connect their forces. They have soldiers in Transnistria. They wanted to take Mykolaiv. They wanted to take Odessa. Of course, they want control of Snake Islands. But they can't do it. Even after mobilization and flooding 300,000 soldiers into the region, they're still playing defense, taking horrible losses. So the goal from the beginning was to take all of Ukraine. They then pared that back in April, and the goal was then to turn Ukraine into a rump state without a coastline. They wanted to take Zaporizhia. They wanted to take this oblast here. They wanted to connect with Transnistria and take Moldova and gain control of the entire coastline along the Black Sea, forcing the Ukrainians to become a landlocked state. Russia's just giving up on all that because they're incompetent. And here's a clip I want to share with you of a member of the Ukrainian parliament in Odessa explaining why they're taking down a monument to the Russian Empress Catherine II. So propaganda-wise, cultural-wise, Odessa in the minds of Russians is a Russian city because in the 1800s this belonged to the Russian Empire and Russian elites would vacation there. But this is a Ukrainian city and always has been. So what the Ukrainians are doing is they're choosing to de-Russify their territory. They're taking down Russian monuments, they're probably renaming Russian streets and Russian buildings and Russian names for anything to get it out of the mind of Russians that this city somehow belongs to them. So here, this clip is about 90 seconds long. Let's listen to it together.
Hello, I'm in Odessa on the famous Katerinska Square in the center of the city. And here is the monument to Catherine II, Russian Empress. And I just want to tell you that you see that now it's already closed. And here is the information that now there is a preparation to move this monument and to take it out from this place. And that is completely right decision. I was fighting for it last month after the start of Russian invasion to Ukraine. And that is not a war against the history or against monuments. Unfortunately, till Russian Empire is alive, it's not about history. It's about Russian Empire killing Ukrainians and trying to take our lands and our cities. And for Putin and for Russian Empire, when on the central square of the city there is a monument to Russian Empress, it means for them that it is Russian city. And Odessa is not Russian city and will never be. Odessa is Ukrainian city and always be a pearl of Ukraine and the southern capital of our country. So this is completely right decision, and I will do everything to finish it and to move this monument from here.
And that's what this war is about. It's about Vladimir Putin saying in the 1800s, this territory used to belong to the Russian Empire, therefore it should belong to me as the leader of the new Russian Empire. Next story we should talk about is that the US confirms ongoing nuclear communications with Russia. I think there's this fear amongst Ukrainians that if the Americans are talking to the Russians, then the Russians might be able to convince them to force Ukrainians to go to the peace talks or negotiating table, and that isn't what this is about. This isn't what the United States wants. Russia and the US eye nuclear arms reduction talks in coming weeks. And what I think is happening here, this is just my speculation, is that Russia is losing this war and they're spending a lot of money on their strategic rocket forces, a lot of officers maintaining all those nuclear weapons, and it's not helping them win a ground war in Asia. If you threaten to nuke Europe or threaten to nuke Ukraine, you don't need 6,000 nuclear warheads. You can get the job done with only having a deterrence or a scare factor of maybe 600. So if you look at this chart, what this shows you is the buildup of nuclear weapons between the United States and the Soviet Union, or Moscow, and Russia today. It peaked in the mid-80s with both the USSR and the United States having 60,000 deployed nuclear warheads. As the Soviet Union began to collapse, Reagan and Gorbachev started these strategic arms reduction treaties, and they started bilaterally reducing the number of nuclear warheads they had. So we had the START 1 treaty, the START 2, the SORT, and the New START, and we've gotten our combined nuclear stockpiles down to more reasonable, more manageable numbers. So what I think is happening here is the United States is talking to Russia saying, wouldn't you like to save some money and stop wasting it on 6,000 nuclear warheads? Why don't we both agree to reduce our nuclear stockpiles, and then you can spend that money to better purposes for your current military goals. This is very smart as far as world peace and world security. I highly support if this is what the United States is actually trying to do. Next story is this brigade that got completely wiped out in the Donetsk Oblast. elite Russian Marine units slams their own military leaders for baffling battle losses. An elite Russian naval infantry unit has blasted its superiors' decision-making after suffering massive losses in what its members called a baffling assault on an eastern Ukrainian village in the Donetsk region. So this is the 155th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade blamed its military leaders for the loss of 300 of their soldiers. This was one battle on one day, and they lost 300 soldiers. Across the entire front lines, with this influx of mobilized Russian men, the casualty count for the Russians is horrendous. They're losing between 500 and 800 soldiers a day. Yes, they just got this influx of close to 300,000, but at the rate they're losing their own men, this isn't going to last them very long. So here is a clip of 3 Russian soldiers. These are survivors of the 155th Brigade who decided to film this video in order to tell their own Russian military bloggers, these are bloggers who support Russia, to calm down with the criticism of the Russian military, even though, yeah, their entire unit almost was wiped out. Let's watch about 50 seconds of this clip together.
Дорогие земляки, дорогие наши приморцы, вот, сегодня вам стало известно, что пошла информация, якобы 155-й бригады нашего отряда уже не существует. Ну, мы вам хотим сказать, что отряд строй держит, вот, бригада воюет. К сожалению, потери есть. Их минимизируем. Потери есть, но это война. У нас тоже там не пацаны воюют, такие же солдаты, как и мы. Вот. И честно вам хотим сказать, что нам легче будет воевать, если дома будет поспокойнее. Поэтому тоже строй держите. Вот. Слухам не верьте.
So it has to be absolutely demoralizing for Russian soldiers knowing that the people back home are being critical of how incompetent Russian military leadership is. Here's another clip I want to share with you of Russian women trying to get information about the whereabouts of their sons, husbands, brothers, so they decided to film this video. Let's watch the first 30 seconds together.
на передовую. Сейчас оттуда везут трупы, нам отзваниваются наши родные, говорят, что тут куча трупов, их кидают на передовую. Отступать у них нет возможности, потому что свои же их будут расстреливать. Нет.
So these are Russian mothers and Russian wives filming a video out of desperation because their loved ones on the front lines have communicated back to them that if they try and retreat, they'll be shot by their own soldiers. This is what the Russian military has done for hundreds of years, and they're trying to do it in the age of digital media and the internet. This is absolutely insane. All right. Last two stories I want to share with you. The first one is of a new stamp design. I've been really impressed by the series of iconic stamps that the Ukrainian post office keeps putting out. And this was titled Separated by War, and it was designed by a high school student from Mykolaiv. With the holiday season coming up, this is going to be extremely difficult and extremely lonely, both for the soldiers on the front lines, but also their families as they've been completely separated. Some are surviving in the dark in cities without power. Some are refugees in Western and Central Europe. So this is a very touching picture. Last clip I want to share with you is how are Russian prisoners of war being treated? We know that Ukrainian prisoners of war in Russian captivity, they're being beaten, they're being starved, they're being treated horrendously. But for the Ukrainians, they shouldn't do that, but they can't do that. They need for Russian soldiers to stop fighting, lay down their arms, and surrender. So I've been personally curious, what is life like for a Russian prisoner of war? So here's a short clip from a POW camp near Lviv, and you can just see for yourself what life is like. Let's watch about a minute of this clip together.
Подъем, завтрак, потом проверка, конечно. Маршировали, просто отрабатывали марш, как правильно ходить. Подшивали бирки на одежду, смотрели кинофильм.
У нас прописано по расписанию занятия спортивными играми. В частности, футбол, шахматы, турники.
Постоянное построение в 6 утра, в 9 утра. Когда наряды меняются, они людей передают пофамильно по карточкам. Вечером вечеря, завтрак, обед, ужин. И кормят, я бы сказал, на 4, на хорошо.
Дякую.
Очень вкусно, хорошо кормят.
А что конкретно вам нравится из меню?
Суп хороший, вот картошка, салаты вкусные.
А что еще дают?
На вечер бывает кашу с рыбой, бывает тоже картошку с рыбой. Чай, хлеб.
Чудовое домашнее питание, то есть так и дома кормят, вообще четко.
So these Russian POWs, they're getting 3 meals a day, they're safe, they're being treated well, and they're also given the opportunity to work if they want. How I understand it is if they're willing to do certain tasks, they can earn money, and they can either save that money for when they get out, or they can use it at a POW commissary to get certain snacks or maybe toiletries or luxury items. So it's about as good as you can get if you were a mobilized Russian man and you escaped death on the front lines. All of these Russian men will be returned home once the war is over, and they're going to spend as much time as they can, I guess, playing soccer, playing chess, watching movies, and reading books until this war is over. That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support my channel. Comments or questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.